When this sad dog was first found wandering the streets, it was clear he didn't trust people. He wasn't mean or aggressive, just deeply sad, like a dog who'd given up on getting close to anyone. At the shelter where he was brought, he kept to himself and avoided making any connections. That is, until one day, someone special showed up. What happened next? Let's just say you'll want some tissues nearby. This one's full of the good kind of tears. Back when a family in Tennessee brought home their new puppy, they fell in love with him right away. He was the smallest in his litter, so they named him Runt and promised that he'd never have to fight for food again like some runts do. They were ready to give him everything he could ever need. Living on a farm, he had tons of open space to explore. In the beginning, they kept him close. He was still young and learning the boundaries, and they wanted to make sure he stayed safe. Runt's life was full and happy. As he grew older, his family trusted that he understood where home was and wouldn't wander too far. By the time he turned 3, he'd never tried to leave the property. The family felt sure he'd always come back. But they were wrong, and that mistake would cost them more than they ever imagined. One evening, they called Runt in for dinner, like always. But he didn't come. That was odd. He never missed a meal. The family quickly split up and searched every part of the property, but Runt was nowhere to be found. Somehow he'd gotten out and wandered off, and now he was lost. They searched for days. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and eventually, years passed. With heavy hearts, they started to believe they'd never see their sweet pup again. Runt had somehow made it 10 miles, about 16 kilometers away, and ended up living on the streets in a business area. The locals got used to seeing him around and kindly made sure he was fed. He always accepted food, but never let anyone get too close. He wasn't aggressive, just distant. He didn't cause trouble, and people respected his space while making sure he had water and meals. Then the pandemic hit. Businesses shut down, and people stopped coming in to work. Suddenly, no one was around to care for Runt. The folks who'd been quietly looking after him for over 2 years started to worry. They contacted the city and asked someone to check on him, and thankfully, the city responded. Runt was picked up and brought to the Washington County Johnson City Animal Shelter. At the shelter, they gave him the name Roscoe. He had a soft bed, fresh water, plenty of food, and even got treats now and then. He accepted it all politely, but when the kind staff tried to connect with him, he shut down again. A lot of strays are nervous when they first arrive at a shelter. It takes time for them to settle in and learn that they're safe. Some have only known fear or pain, so it's no surprise they struggle to trust people. But Roscoe's case felt different. He wasn't afraid. He would gently take treats from their hands without a fuss, but there was no spark in him, no emotion, no interest in bonding with anyone. Tammy Davis, the shelter director, put it plainly. He didn't want comfort, didn't want to be touched. It was like he was just going through the motions. No matter what they tried, Roscoe didn't react. They gave him toys, played with him, and offered all kinds of treats. But nothing lit him up. His tail never wagged. He seemed joyless. Just there. Tammy said he was quiet and distant, like he didn't even know how to be a dog anymore. 6 months went by, and nothing had changed. Roscoe was still as distant as the day he arrived. The staff had tried everything they could, but it was clear. He didn't want connection. Still, he wasn't aggressive or difficult. He was just uninterested. And that didn't mean he didn't deserve a chance at a good life. Even if he wasn't going to be a cuddly companion, maybe someone out there could give him the space he needed. But would anyone want a dog who might never become their buddy? They weren't sure, but they had to try. Because of COVID, people couldn't visit the shelter like they used to. So the staff leaned on their social media more than ever to help dogs get noticed. They decided it was time to share Roscoe's story, too, but they agreed not to sugarcoat it. They didn't want him to end up back at the shelter just because someone hoped for a different kind of dog. So they posted the truth. Roscoe had been there 6 months and hadn't connected with anyone. He took treats politely, but quickly walked away. They explained they believed he'd spent most of his life living as a stray. and they finished with a gentle warning. If someone was looking for a snuggly pet, Roscoe wasn't that dog. Then they hit post and waited. They truly wanted to find Roscoe a home where he could feel at ease. Maybe not joyful, not yet, but at least calm and safe. Everyone at the shelter had a soft spot for the big dog with those sad brown eyes. They would have given anything just to see him wag his tail once. But no one could have guessed how much their simple social media post was about to change his life. The post got a few comments and questions, mostly from people just asking for more info. But one message stood out. When Tammy read it, she was stunned. The person said they thought Roscoe was actually their missing dog, Runt, the pup they'd lost 3 years ago. At first, Tammy didn't know what to think. They had guessed Roscoe was about 6 years old, which meant he would have been gone for half his life. How could someone be sure after all that time? Was it just wishful thinking? Tammy worried that the person might be setting themselves up for heartbreak. Runt's owner sent over several pictures right away, including close-up shots that showed some very distinct markings on his coat. Tammy compared them with Roscoe's, and it really did look like a match. It was possible. But even if Roscoe was Runt, would it matter? He wasn't the same cheerful pup anymore. What if he didn't remember them? Or worse, didn't care? Still, Tammy arranged a time for the man to come in and meet Roscoe face to face. Maybe this reunion would give them the answer. When the man arrived, they gently opened Roscoe's kennel. The dog looked up and stared at him for a moment. Just a few seconds passed, but then something changed. Roscoe's tail started wagging wildly. His eyes lit up, and he even let out a little whimper. He looked like he was smiling. There were even tears in his eyes. Suddenly, he wasn't the quiet, distant dog the shelter staff had known. He was full of emotion. He knew exactly who this man was. Roscoe was Runt. He hadn't forgotten. All this time, he'd just been waiting. Now he was back where he belonged, with his family. And this time, they'd make sure he'd never go missing again. This story is such a beautiful reminder to never give up hope. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs a little faith restored. See you next time for more real stories that inspire.